We are here with Dr. Irwin Redlener. He's the founder of the Ukraine Children's Action Project. Dr. Redlener, thanks for being here today. Bring us up to speed on the situation over in Ukraine with the displaced children. First of all, how many child casualties have there been, and where have the displaced children gone?
Yeah, so this is actually an extraordinarily difficult problem for the Ukrainians, obviously. But even without these children who have been abducted, and there's at least 20,000 of them, I think it's actually much more than that. But even aside from that, this has been a very horrible time this last 3.5 years for Ukrainian children. Over 2,500 have been killed or injured. There's at least 1 million children who are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, from just the psychological stress of the multiple air attacks, the displacements that their families are going through, and so on. And then another at least 1 million kids have had their education really severely disrupted. The Russians have been systematically abducting children from the occupied territories and wherever they are, wherever they can get a hold of them, and they're bringing them back to Russia, where the older children are sent to these re-education camps all over Russia. They're very hard to locate even where they are, and once they get there, they're subject to nonstop propaganda with Russians trying to erase their Ukrainian identity, this sort of cultural elimination, which is heartbreaking. And then the younger children are being put up for adoption. The Russians have been changing the names of the babies and toddlers and putting them up for adoption. And this means a nightmare, not only for the individual families, obviously, but all of Ukraine is heartsick about this.
Right. So to your point of Russia intentionally targeting these Ukrainian children really as an act of war, to your point, there was a report a couple days ago saying that Russia is essentially running a slave catalog or a trafficking ring of Ukrainian children in the Luhansk region, which is part of the Donbass. What is going to happen to these children if there is no ceasefire made in these negotiations that are going on? And furthermore, if the Donbass is offered up as a concession territory to the Russians?
Yeah, that's a frightening thought, because we already don't know exactly what's going on in the occupied regions. Information is very hard to come by. The Russians are tough and the Russians are cruel, and that kind of leadership they're getting from the top, from Putin himself, who's pretty cold-hearted, cutthroat leader there. And as far as the children are concerned, once Russia occupies a territory, they get to do whatever they want, and they're impenetrable. And I really do worry about really any territorial concessions that the Ukrainians might be forced to give to Russia. I worry about this. I know these people, the Ukrainians. I know the children, and it's really unthinkable to me, and it should be to all Americans and all democracy-loving people, that Russia cannot get away with this. The fate of these children should be something that's top of mind in any negotiations.
Yeah, and tell us more about your mission. You're trying to right these wrongs with the Ukraine Children's Action Project.
Yeah. So the Ukraine Children's Action Project was an organization established by my wife Karen and me just a couple of months after the full-scale invasion in 2022. The website is UCAP, UCAP.help, H-E-L-P, UCAP.help. We're not going away until everything is resolved here.
Well, Dr. Irwin Redlener, thank you so much for being with us today, and we wish you well on your mission.
Thank you so much for having me.